Going. There we go. And we'll just let hopefully some additional folks join. Hi, everybody. You guys all know me, uh, but if you're watching this recording, I'm Doug Brunke and the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. The Global Chamber San Francisco chapter has been really near and dear to me over the last several years. And particularly, I guess about 3 years ago, I was quite confident that uh, I was moving to San Francisco, and more specifically to the peninsula. And so my wife and I bundled up our goods. And while we were moving, basically during that week, we were told by our daughter that they were moving to LA. And so that was an exciting thing. I'm glad it didn't happen a few weeks later. Uh, it allowed us to shift, and we basically kind of held on for a little bit and waited to make sure that everything was going to work out well in LA, and it did. And so we ended up getting a place in LA, and that's where I am today. However, Global Chamber San Francisco chapter is one of our oldest chapters. It's been very successful over the years. The last few board chairs have been amazing. Deep Sen Gupta was extraordinary, and Lainey Denslow, as I think everybody knows, has been really successful. And this last year, I took a little bit of a different track, and it didn't work out because the timing wasn't good, because Vinayak Gupta, who started the year really strong, fell ill. And we were just been kind of waiting for him to kind of hang in there for a little bit longer, and it's taken quite a bit longer. He's still not even quite up to even connecting, to a meeting like this. And so I've spoken with him, and he sends his best regards. And so we're going to keep moving forward. And we have I have two conversations going with alternative advisory board chairs, and we'll plan to move one of those two forward. I think one of them may end up coming here today, although I didn't confirm with him. But he's looks like probably going to be our next board chair. And once that all gets official, I'll let you know. So today, what I'd love to be able to do is just give you a quick update on what's going on with Global Chamber, and then just do a quick roundtable. And we could end up being, very quick, and maybe even, within the bottom of the hour, be able to wrap up. As far as Global Chamber, the last few weeks have been very busy. I think some of it may be timing, and I think there's also a lot of interest in global business, and I think a lot of that is related to people talking about global. It's in the news, and like what's going on in the world, and so there's a gift in everything that happens. And I think the gift in this case isn't necessarily that if you're an American, the best strategy is being developed. I'm not going to sit here and judge whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just a strategy. And one of the results of that strategy, I think clearly, is that there's a lot more people interested in global business, and that there are geopolitical shifts that are happening that are creating new connections that have either never been seen before, or they're being refreshed in new and different ways. And I know I've personally become a lot more involved in Turkey and Uzbekistan, and even more lately in Russia, where I've not been involved in the last 2 or 3 years. Still involved in Ukraine and some other places. So there are shifts going on in the Middle East, and what's happening in Saudi Arabia is just extraordinary. And Africa, Africa with the AFCFTA, and a lot of what's going on across the continent continues to move things forward. There are dynamics that potentially could subterfuge what's going on there. But overall, I'd say it's quite positive. Same with India, where India has played, I think, the geopolitics game quite well. And so as things like the shift of Apple iPhones from China to India that was just announced is a huge opportunity. India has some dynamics that that create not necessarily the next China. However, there's a lot more business that's going to happen in India, and that's good to know. And it's also good for all of us to participate in those things that make the most sense. So overall, I would say the global picture, even though the overall outlook for global trade is down, the overall picture for global people is positive because we need to stay involved. We need to stay connected. We need new connections. We need new thinking. We need not to be stuck in being judging about what's going on. We just need to see what's happening very clearly. One of the one final, well, a couple of final things that I'll like to say is, if you haven't read any of the books by Ray Dalio, I recommend them. And I'm reading the one Principles right now, and even though the beginning part is very much around investing, which is good, but it really kind of sets the stage for, as he gets into the next 2/3 of the book, what's happening in the world. And one of the things he talks a lot about is not judging, being very clear about truth, what's really happening, and not making judgments that get in the way and cloud your decisions. And I'm finding it very refreshing. He's also from Queens, New York, which most of my family is from Queens, and I just like his accent and I like his direct approach, and he's brilliant. He's really intelligent, and he's a multi-billionaire. I mean, he's a smart guy, and he's been very successful, and you can see why. I highly recommend listening to that book or reading the book, however you best digest things like that. As far as Global Chamber, there was one more thing I wanted to say, other than we're just trying to keep up and bring on some new people to be able to handle that. But beyond people, we need to, and we knew this, need to develop systems that were better suited to be able to scale to a much bigger level. And we founded this February a global council, which is co-led by Dr. Sanjeev Kagram and Francis Tesmer. Dr. Kagram is the former CEO of Thunderbird School of Global Management and a global icon. He's an extraordinary leader, originally from Uganda. His family, his father was a banker. His bank was taken by Idi Amin, and they were forced to leave Uganda. And banking never really left his system. However, year after year, Sanjeev has been very successful in the venture capital world and in the entrepreneurial world. That was part of how he got involved with Thunderbird, and why he's now very deeply connected with the United Nations, with Davos, and at the highest levels around the world. And part of that was the adventure of having his own bank, which he's now the board chair for, Altos Bank, which he was successful in raising funds for, and now is up and running. And we are doing an event. And as I was mentioning to Philip ahead of time, that originally was, I think, in March, we were going to do an event, and then it got moved to April. And then it got moved to May 12th, which was a Monday. And I saw Jeff Olson join, and I was trying to negotiate with Sanjeev about something that was later in the week. And we got it to the 14th, and it was there for about 2 weeks. And now it's being shifted again. And it's either going to be the week after or the first week in June. And I really need Sanjeev to kind of pull this thing so that we set a date and we move with it. Because what we want to be able to do here is bring the global community to the bank. And I've already talked to several dozen different countries about attending that event. And I've stopped mentioning the date because it's getting a little bit crazy. But once that date is set, that we stick to the date, we move ahead with it. And then through that global community, invite them to come to this bank, to be the bank of choice for any company that's landing in the US. There's not only a lot of banks or a lot of companies that are landing and have landed recently, but there's many more on the way. So whether it's the Korea Innovation Center in the KIC in San Jose, or a similar group of the same organization that back in DC, or Matrade, or Jetro, or Kotra, or the Indonesia independent groups and entrepreneurial groups, Singapore, India, a variety of other countries. Our goal with Global Chamber is to bring them usually connections to clients, but in this case, we want to bring them to the bank to be connected to some of this community that Sanjeev has already started to build for the bank. His goal has been to create a better Silicon Valley bank. It's the first bank to set up in California in over 20 years to pass through all the regulators. That's actually why the May 14th event the May 14th event has to change, because the bank regulators have said they're going to be there that week, and that's going to take precedent. So that's why we're moving that there. So I'm a real optimist about global business. I think also realistic about it. That part of that optimism is built on the changes and being available to as an organization for those changes, and having more and more new members as we continue to grow to be able to help members get through the challenges. There will be undoubtedly continued challenges with tariffs and others over the coming months. But ultimately, I think it is creating an environment where more people are going to be more involved with the opportunity. I also want to mention about the AI tool. It's called Globi, that Global Chamber has developed. It has been developed. We're finishing up the icon for it, and it actually may be set tonight or in the next week or so. And then it's being evaluated by a few folks. We've already tested it. We're happy with what it's been able to do for our internal team. And then the external team, meaning the members, will be able to start rolling that out in the coming weeks. I want to see the plan before we say anything more about the timeline to members, but the good news is our own team is already using it, and we'll continue to use it throughout the coming weeks and months and years as we bring up our team around the world. So that's an exciting development for us, because to be able to scale, we need to be a better team. We need to have better training. We need to be better at providing better options for our members. So that's what's kind of going on with the chapter. That's going on with Vinayak, with his situation regarding the board chair, the next steps there, some of the things that are going on with Global Chamber. I appreciate you listening. I see a couple of folks, and I don't know if maybe I should introduce Amr. Amr, thank you for joining. Are you able to say hi? And while we're waiting, you may not be. I'd like to introduce the regional folks to Ruby. She's been based in the U.S. How long are you going to be in the U.S.? How long is what's your plan?
Not too sure, but I'm here for a while now. I'm going to be here for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, but definitely we'll be going back to Ghana before the end of the year, but I haven't fixed dates yet.
Well, what is the Los Angeles chapter has been moving rapidly forward. As I think some of you know, Jeff Darr has been the board chair, and now it's Dr. Sarita Jackson. She's amazing, and she's really done a great job of pulling the chapter together. And we've got a variety of things that we've already done this year and we plan to do going forward. I know, Ruby, you've also been through your relationship and executive director role with the Ghana chapter. You're not only have your finger on what's happening in Ghana, but you're also have a great idea about what's going on in Africa and now in Turkey too, because of your work with Rashid. What's what's your view of some of the opportunities that you see out there? What's worth looking at these days?
I think you've highlighted quite the main point, but I just want to add that at this time, Africa, a lot is going on in Africa. And so if you are not considered Africa, I would advise that you don't sit on the fence. Everybody is looking for alternative markets, and a lot of people are having appetite for Africa. Depending on which of the regions, whether you want to go east, west, south, there's a lot of opportunities in many, many sectors, depending on which area you are doing business in. And that is why we are on the ground. Although I'm, joining you from Michigan, I do have colleagues and team on the ground to support. Just let us know if you have any projects coming up or if you are particularly interested in any particular sector. We'll be able to highlight and connect you to the right people. But this is the time. Don't look back. Others have, kind of put their foot in the door and are doing amazing work and projects. I therefore will encourage, especially US companies, to look to Africa as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
We've been talking for many years to do a global meeting for Global Chamber and get our global team together. And we are doing one July 9th through 11th in Tanzania, where we're hosting the president of Tanzania on the 9th of July and the president of Zanzibar on the 11th. And then we've got a variety of different, the trade minister regionally. And as you may know, that region has many different countries that are all kind of circled around it that are really important. And so we'll be doing an outreach to our Africa team and our global team to hopefully bring in a variety of folks to that. And Nima Maleli has pulled that together, and we'll be pulling that together over the next couple plus months. So
absolutely. And for us in Ghana, our chapter, we're looking to kind of organize a virtual trade mission before the end of the year. So for those who will not physically be able to travel to Tanzania, can actually join a virtual trade mission where we'll have great speakers to kind of highlight the kind of opportunities across Africa. So hopefully I will be sharing more information on what is going to happen before December.
Well, I'd like to introduce Jeff Olson and then open it up for questions, and then also, anybody be able to make comments as well and to share updates on what's going on with you. Jeff, as you, those of you who are part of the chapter, no, Jeff has been part of the Global Chamber San Francisco Advisory Board for a number of years, and it's been actually a couple other companies that you've been part of, and now you're with TopSource. So thank you for the conversations we've had over the last several weeks and maybe months, but certainly weeks, and look forward to working with TopSource going forward. What's the latest and greatest in your world? You've got your finger on the world, don't you?
We do, to the best of our ability. Hey, Shupto, how are you? Um,
Hey Jeff, how are
so
you?
good. Um, do we, pardon me, group. We have stuff on calendar, right? Did we get that figured out?
Yes, that's what I was going to email you. I'll
Okay,
email you.
cool.
Okay.
All right. Crypto is one of my partners offline, and we've been coordinating a lunch or a meeting or something, and
Yeah.
I saw him, so I figured I'd ask while I had his attention. So pardon me for being an opportunist, but isn't that what we all are? So so I've been working with Doug through to his point through several iterations through outsourced corporate tax to global expansion companies to an employer of record. I've had the privilege of working at TopSource for the last year as their strategic partnerships manager. And for those of you that don't know, TopSource kind of glues all that together. So we basically operationalize global acquisitions and partner with both SMBs and multinationals to build like requisite international structure, ensure compliance, manage global people ops. And we do that through a bunch of HR advisory, payroll, finance, and entity solutions that we manage all under one roof. So what I've really kind of found lately, Doug, is a lot of interest, but not a lot of action. You know, people are curious. They're asking a bunch of questions. They're looking at landscape. They're entertaining a bunch of options globally, but their ability or their willingness to make decisions, it's really two. It's people that are like, okay, we're on hold, or they're like, okay, we need to build out our international structure so we can obviate some of this and kind of move through. So that's been kind of my view so far in the last couple of weeks or months. Um, what
I
about you,
think
Shu?
that's a regular observation that we see because people don't know where to invest right now, right? Because it's so unpredictable. There's a lot of studying going on. There's not necessarily a lot of decisions going on. Do you have a way of creating work out of studies and
Yes,
evaluating?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have clients that are looking to kind of figure out what their go-to-market is globally, I'm actually talking to a major fund, but they're on hold because they're aligned in the kind of NGO nonprofit space. But, you know, they're going to need to kind of rework their entire global structure, right? So do we divide and conquer and have a global headquarters and a US headquarters? How do we reorganize our structure so that it makes sense? You know, things like that. So yes, we can get into a lot of the operational structure and operational conversations in alignment with their attorneys, of course, because we're a lot of things, but we're not a law firm. So, you know, we partner well with that, and that's what I've been doing. I have some that are offshore manufacturers or have the ability to offshore manufacture, so they're looking at like Brazil or other places to do their manufacturing and ship from Brazil to Europe and ship from Brazil to, you know, Asia and kind of be able to directly control their situation from there. And I have people that are looking to bring stuff in country. So it really depends on the client's market and, you know, what they're trying to do. You know, there's no pat answer to it. There just isn't. So yeah, we can get into the studies, we can get into the operationalization of their structure and everything, but yeah, the rest is TBD. I mean, Shupto, are you seeing the same thing? I know we
Yeah,
talked about this.
yes, and I'm kind of seeing it, and I'm telling all my clients that you have to have a backup plan, right? So what we're doing basically, we're building up module, all these options, right? So if you have offshore versus if you have inshore, or even like offshore, let's say you just touched on it, Jeff, that if you're in Mexico, for example, how bad it will take your cost and stuff rather than, let's say if you just even bought one of our actually private equity client had a client and they actually, it's I think Hyundai Capital, they recently bought for their Hyundai car uh, place a really bad building in South Dakota or somewhere like, for $40 million, which is nobody will ever go for it just because to get rid of this tariff situation and make a lot of things easier. So I'm working from a financial perspective, like with all those different module and tax treaty, tax benefit comes into the place. What you just kind of said, like a very complex module type of thing to get more benefited because regardless, tariff is going to come here or there, even with the Canadian company now these days, right? There's going to be some sort of negotiation, but there's going to be a 10% base anyway. I mean, that's they're gonna do, and that's basically if you look at it from inflation perspective, that's also gonna be there. A lot of this manufacturing type of people, they haven't done the bottoms up P&L, like what really costing them with the inflationary. So that's why I tell them, like, even if you think like this tariff is gonna be, it's just a, but it'll go away, but it's not. You have the inflation, you have the baseline tariff will kick in, and if you want to think like, Doug was saying, which was a great announcement when Apple switched from China to India, and these people are now negotiating with US, like what should be their rate. That is
Exactly.
another piece, like, okay, we say, okay, so from Mexico, should you go to now India? But the thing is this, if you go to India, the transportation cost is super crazy. And then if you have like, those, that Panama hiccup, like in between, I think 2, 3 months ago or last year, they closed that path So these are all things to consider. So probably keep it in Mexico, it'll be much better. I mean, it's not that far. I mean, and if you have an office in California, let's say you buy one of those things. So these are movement we are seeing, definitely a lot of movement in real estate because of this reason, because people are now investing into real estate to kind of avoid at least the tariff situation, if not
Yeah, I
fully,
agree with
but at
that.
least some sort of it.
Interesting.
I'm seeing movement in domestic commercial real estate that has
Yeah.
been just lethargic for the last several years. So it's definitely there's an uptick there for those of you that are interested in that particular market. But to your point, Shupto, I think it's also like you said, it's interesting, like you said about with Apple going from China to India. We have a 400 person global capability center over there, so we can add value to a lot of people, especially if they're going to be doing that kind of
Yeah.
regionalization where you're looking at going from South America to, are you going South America to the US? Are you
Right.
going South America to the rest of the world? Are you going
Yeah.
India to the US? Are you going
Right.
India to, you know,
Right.
Middle East and Europe and
Yeah.
Africa, right? And then what are the tax ramifications of that? And also my curiosity right now too is like with your client in South Dakota, they're buying property, they're looking to manufacture to, you know, respect the US economy, which I get and I love, but are they still paying tariffs on the inbound raw materials?
No, so
Is that going to obviate the problem? I've been disconnected from that for a couple weeks, so forgive me.
no, and it's not really, and the laws are not really clear. What they're trying to base on the rule is that we assemble in US. So at least we're gonna get rid of the, and these are Hyundai, these are like China, like a lot of this part is in China.
Right.
They're gonna have a lot of tariffs. So on that issue, they're saying, okay, we're only gonna assemble in there. So basically, baseline tariff 10 or 15 or 20% call it is gonna be there, but they're gonna avoid the other piece of it. I mean,
Right.
this decision, they actually made it overnight. Like we literally saw this piece of literally it's a garbage property that somebody would never ever pay for it, and it was done. And it's an M&A activity happening in that world. We were like, okay, and it's just done like within a day. It's done like with all the calls and stuff. And I was just surprised. And then when I was talking to the CFO, he was like, well, worst case scenario, tariff is going to be there, but we'll save the 50 or 80% of the tariff. And as you said, like Africa is also coming up a lot of things, and
Yep.
Philippines too. But I think they're trying to every client I tell them that do the cost benefit analysis, right? Like what are you trying to get achieved from there versus here? And to your point, Jeff, like do these moduling. So we are doing a lot of different module food for thought for next at least like before July to come up with an idea. But then this idea is needed. A lot of this company they haven't done all of their bottoms up P&L inflationary. Like I come to see a lot of manufacturing people they haven't done their costing right, which is surprising. Like well we are doing for something else, but then we are discovering a lot of things that
Yeah.
they didn't. Like that this is a fight between the owners and operational director and
I'm seeing that too. They're a little loosey-goosey on their numbers and projections and kind of living a little bit in the wild, wild west, so to speak.
right,
And this is forcing them to kind of grow up and,
right.
you know,
And,
reanalyze their business plan and tighten up their numbers and do all that. And you brought up the M&A kind of vertical. I have
yeah,
seen, and I'd love to hear anybody else's thoughts on this, but I'm slowly starting to see more and more activity
yeah.
um, in the
You,
transaction market.
another big thing happening now with this tariff thing. So I was in New York with this crypto conference. A lot of the movement going on internationally, from Turkey to everywhere. Middle Eastern people, like they're investing so much money in that world, which is like another way of this. I don't know if it's a retaliation or just like kind of hide money situation in that space in the M&A world. But a lot of the M&A people in the blockchain versus that's a little bit also in there in the right now. I mean, every company, every person I talk, high net worth individual, that's something coming up now because there's a lot of tax rule just waived recently. Like there's no
I'm seeing more
reporting and stuff. Well, there's no report.
divestitures,
DeFi is
and then
gone. There's no
what's that?
DeFi. So basically, before you have to list all of your crypto assets, any
Oh, got
crypto
it.
asset. You don't have to pay taxes, but you have to declare. They just took off all those requirements. So
Interesting.
you're good. But it is interesting. It's a little bit concerning to me because now you don't know who has what and who's investing on where. And that's a world that I think we'll have to worry when something happens. But
What does that do to your KYC and AML process, though? You know, I mean, we're
you
a
don't have,
UK-based company, so we live in a different world on that in that respect, right? We answer to a different master to some degree, you
yeah, but
know?
I don't think they don't have any major requirements either. The
Okay.
blockchain, because I
Right.
have quite a few blockchain clients, like, like one of the things, like they were saying, what is the US regulation? And this is actually a company, they have business in Europe, Turkey, and some of the Middle East, and then India too. So I'm like, what is your international thing? It's like, then we don't have no requirement. I'm like, okay, then you're all good. US doesn't have any requirement. And the guy couldn't believe me. I'm like, no, there is no requirement. They just peeled it off. I think last month, 317 or 315, they just repealed it. So
Well, I'd like to get a couple more voices in. You guys are
Agreed.
amazing. This is a great topic. Rich Wolverton is a food industry expert, and I'm wondering on the hospitality side in the food industry, Rich, do you have a moment just to check in and let us know what you're seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting dealing with a spice company. So they're international, of course, where they get their spices, and selling here in the US. And right now, we've not seen a price increase. It's a wait and see attitude at this point. You know, what they want to wait and understand what the real tariffs are going to be. You know, I look at what's going on with tariffs, and it's a high stakes game that is affecting people pretty directly. Dealing with a soup company that's in the U.S., they sell into Canada, and what's happened now is kind of the same thing. They're not raising their prices yet, but that means they're taking a hit. So waiting to see what happens and how the governments decide to negotiate all this out. We were talking to some companies out of China on bringing some products into the U.S. We call it disposables, so like aluminum trays, plastic wrap, things like that. And they just went quiet on us when all this started happening. And they're obviously waiting to see what happens. They have plants in other places in Southeast Asia, but when you throw a tariff on everything, it takes away any good option. So just kind of hanging tight at this point. So it sounds a bit similar, a lot of wait and see. But as the gentleman said already, companies need to figure out what their backup plan is and how they're going to move forward on these issues, because tariffs, they can do three things. They can stay the same, they can go up, they can go down, and we need to be ready for that.
Curious what your soup people are doing with their production line, with their goals and with their kind of budgets and stuff, because if they're waiting to see on where they're shipping stuff, are they still making stuff? Are they selling it domestically? I mean, I worked in food for a long time, so there's a shelf life there, and there's a run right there that needs to be managed, and that has to be just a complete freaking nightmare, you know?
It makes it difficult. They're selling some product there. It's a smaller piece of their business, however. Most of their business is domestic US.
Okay.
And yeah.
So something they can absorb and kind of restructure and kind of redistribute, and
Yeah, he's not happy with it, but he's doing it, and that's why he was talking to us, is about growing the business in the US. They don't have a great sales force in the US, so we're talking to them about how to build that business out. So
sounds good. Could I also ask Philip, you've got a broad across market perspective of what's going on. What are you seeing out there? Oh,
helps to activate the audio.
No worries. Great to
So,
see you. Thanks for coming in. What's your view of the world right now?
um, first of all, my firm helps inbound and outbound companies expand into the non-English world. Most people are blissfully unaware that only 17% of the world speaks English as a primary or secondary language, secondary as is in Ghana, Philippines, India, and so forth. Um, so my company takes any kind of file or project and can put it into 120 world languages with accuracy and precision, which AI solutions do not do. They will always make mistakes. Some of those mistakes can be very critical. And if a company is looking to project itself as having excellence, precision and excellence, then they need to have a company that radiates that same, helps them to radiate that image. So certainly, we are hurting in terms of companies being uncertain about, where to go with all the tariffs. But in terms of services, services are not tariffed. And so, for example, one of our key markets is SaaS companies, e-learning companies, other digital marketing companies, which obviously can deliver services, if not products. But so there are a lot of companies where tariffs don't apply, and that's the focus that we're emphasizing right now. Okay.
Could you, and maybe we start with Jeff again in kind of a roundtable of Jeff, you have a perspective of a variety of different companies globally even, and how the markets are. What's your view of what's happening in the Bay Area right now that's so focused in on tech and the financing side? You mentioned a little bit about M&A. What are you seeing in the Bay Area, and would any of you contrast what's going on in the Bay Area with the dynamics with the rest of the US and world?
The complicated question. The Bay Area is still pretty diverse in a lot of respects. I mean, it's technology, but there's a lot of different technology in there. There's med device, which has a product. There's AI, which is a service. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So the only real thing that I've seen that's been moving in a direction that I can put a finger on are the two things I mentioned would be like med device, AI, and then also, you know, things like, the Moss Adams Baker Tilly kind of merger and, Cohn Resnick getting it PE investments. So private equity is starting to really turn to and look at, service industries that have multipliers that can be leveraged. And I see some of that happening top to bottom. I'm not sure that answers your question, but that's what comes to mind. And then, Philip, we need to talk about Vietnam because I may have somebody that needs you. So let's connect.
Wonderful. I'll put my information in the chat so everyone can see it, and then Jeff, you can contact me. That's okay.
Will do. I'll be right back. I have to take care of my son.
Sounds good. Shupto, how about you? You're based in Sacramento, so you see a lot in the Bay Area. You spend a lot of time in LA too, and in New York, and here and there. I think in the Midwest too, right?
Yeah.
So what are you seeing regionally, or are there regional impacts of what's going on right now?
So, I mean, I spent quite a few time in San Francisco. Yes, you're right. Like, what Jeff was saying, a lot of the service industry is moving. M&A activity a little bit slowed down in this area. But then again, I saw real estate is picking up just because of this tariff situation. Tech company, yes, you're right. It's still like a lot of the tech company is they're trying to gearing up with their at least fundraising, especially with the AI situation. One thing with the AI in San Francisco, I think they need a lot of space for AI agents. So you'll see the office space in San Francisco, they are actually getting pretty filled up. I mean, all this tech company, they are renting left and right. So
Again, great.
Yeah. And so that brings the problem, like, okay, electricity and all those things that they have that much infrastructure for this, all those things. So right there, you see there are going to be a lot of those bio or, those environmental thing or electricity investment. That's what I'm seeing. Like if you compare San Francisco 3 months ago versus now, you will see a lot of empty space got, rented now. There is still a lot more, but compared to, like, if you compare last year versus this year, then you can actually see more. A lot of people now travel at work, so you see bar train, they're pretty packed. There are a lot of parties going on after office hour parties, stuff like just M&A world and all those things. So that's one. New York is different. Chicago, New York is just basically you have mix of everything, manufacturing, all those different things. Overall it's picking up, but it's slow. It's not like how we saw the pace, like first, like we not pay we projected last year fourth quarter, oh, it'll be like really great, but after this tariff thing, it came down to a little bit slowdown. People are just trying to wait and watch.
Okay. Rich, do you have enough business within the area to kind of judge how the Bay Area is faring with others?
I don't today. I'm actually starting Monday working with a local distributor, Rock Island Refrigerated Distributing, to help him get going into food service. So ask me in a month and I'll tell you.
Okay, gotcha. Are you near San Jose? Where are you located?
Oh, Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa.
Yeah. So up in Sonoma County.
Okay, north. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Or okay, Santa Rosa in Sonoma County.
Yeah. So west.
45 miles north of San Francisco, Doug. So equidistant San Jose to San Francisco. Santa Rosa is the other side. My daughter went to Sonoma State. So.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
That's where all the wine is.
Okay. I gotta, is it beyond Heldsburg then?
Healdsburg is close.
Okay. Okay. That I'm familiar with.
Okay, yeah, we're very close to that.
I'll have to recheck my maps. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We have about 10 minutes left. Given the conversation, I think it's been great to learn. I've got a page worth of notes. Does anybody else who hasn't spoken have anything to say? And then I'll circle back with everybody that has spoken to see if you've got any other additional comments or needs, if you have things that you need help with. Anybody have any other comments before we go to needs? Thanks for joining, Lothar. I appreciate it. What needs does everybody have right now? I heard a Vietnam need that Jeff has, so that sounds like that's set. That's cool. Any other needs that you have in Vietnam or any other ones that you have, Jeff, overall?
No, there's just some transactions and some opportunities there that are going to land squarely within the Vietnamese infrastructure, and it's just figuring out contracts and negotiating things with negotiating language barriers, being able to, when you start getting into the brass tacks of venture private equity and, doing like actual transactions, language, of course, becomes super important. So, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, we did a trade mission from Vietnam to the U.S. and it was, I think, April 1st. So it was like the day before the tariffs hit. And, if we think back, I mean, at least I didn't think that Vietnam would be hit with a 64% tariff, but it was, or I think that's the number. Same with Japan. Right around that same time, I was at the Japanese consulate, and it was, a bit of a shock to see what had happened. Fortunately, a lot of that has dissipated to some extent, but it's still in the air. So Jeff, no other particular needs that you have? That's
No, just useless commentary. A lot of the tariff is shock and awe. It's standard, art of the deal. Walk as far and as close to the cliff as you can get, raise the bar as high as humanly possible, and then start negotiating and backpedaling.
Yeah.
It's not our first time with the president, so we're in the early stages of him resetting the landscape from a business perspective. He's going to backpedal. He's going to negotiate. It's going to be a process. anybody who's read his books or done anything with him over the years knows exactly what's going on. So, I don't see Vietnam landing with a tariff at that rate, but that's his starting point. Cost average back down to half the distance to the goal line, maybe 33%, something like that. I mean, I don't know. That's my impression for whatever it's worth.
Oh, good thoughts. Rich, any needs that you have right now?
No, sir. Looking good. Thank you very much, Doug, for all you do.
You're amazing. Thank you very much. Shupto, how about you?
At this point, I don't have any needs, so I'm good. Thank you.
Hopefully we can connect up when you're in LA.
Yep.
There is something, there is a family office event that's happening next week, and I'll make sure that you're all aware of it. It's an interesting opportunity, and once I have a little bit more understanding of who's going to be there, I think apparently the agenda is out, and I'll figure it out. It's actually a contact that's come through Dr. Cogram, and I don't think any of you have met him yet. And he is a little bit of an enigma kind of fellow, but deeply connected around the world. And he has his own Davos events, and I'm trying to think of who the fellow is that has the big event next week in LA. But I'll send that out to all of you. I made a note.
The enigma personality is pretty standard for that. Enigmatic? I don't know. That one, I struggle with that one, but that personality is pretty normal. I'd be interested. Is that going to be in the Bay or is that going to be in LA?
It's going to be in LA. Yeah, it's he does all of his events in LA. The one that we're doing at Altos Bank, that's going to tap into that other world of folks, like I mentioned about.
And we're talking next week, like literally. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, the one in LA is next week. Yeah, so I'll let you guys know. I do have I have the date of it because I put it on my calendar, it's in Hollywood.
What's the date?
Yeah, let me double check. It's
gotta determine whether a lot of things.
So, Michael Milken. So it's a Davos Worldwide Milken side event at the SLS Hotel on the 7th of May. So that's Wednesday, the 7th, at the SLS Hotel in Beverly Hills. And so it's from 8:30 to 3:30. And so it's a variety of entrepreneurs and investors, and he went through the whole list, and apparently I have access to some of the folks that'll be there. So if you're potentially interested in that, let me know. And then in the evening, there is some sort of like it's called a speakeasy. I'm just an uncool guy, but apparently those speakeasies that happened during Prohibition, like now it's kind of trendy to have one at a luxury hotel, and you kind of like a private affair and something like that. So people are going to
happy hour.
Basically that's what it is. And in fact, it's the event during the day is over at 3:30, and then we apparently come back later. I did try to get a couple people already into the one that's later, and he kind of said, "Well, I'm not sure." So I don't know. I can't guarantee anything on that, but I can definitely get anybody into the day.
For me, sorry folks, I know it's not all about me, but it is. So let's be real. If you message me, Doug, because if I don't go to Unleashed in Vegas, then I'm interested in going to LA. And
cool. I'll send you the information for sure. Anybody else have anything before we close the room? I'm trying to be a little bit more disciplined of finishing up around 55 instead of the top of the hour, just so we have enough time for bathroom breaks and getting ready for our next meetings. Anything else from anybody else that they'd like to share or needs? Ruby, anything that we can do for you?
Any referrals of people interested in Africa, send my way. That would be great.
Okay. Did we ever connect you with the lady who does Africa for the city of Los Angeles? Something like Aiden or something like that? Does that ring a bell?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll get you connected.
Okay. Thank you.
we're working with the city of LA to figure out what our big event is with them. With City of Phoenix, we do the semiconductor summit, and with LA, they really like that, and we're going to do something. It might be sports, so we'll see. Jeff,
Rich.
any final word?
Yes. Hey, Rich, let's connect. I think there might be ways for us to work together. You take care of domestic, I take care of the global. There might be synergies there, there might not, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, sounds good. I just followed you on LinkedIn.
All right, cool. That's it. I'm done.
Do you do outbound stuff, Rich?
You know, if somebody needs help with that, yeah. Currently, no. Currently,
Okay. Okay, but food industry, there's nobody better than Rich. So definitely have him on your speed dial, Jeff. Thanks everybody for taking the time today. A little bit delayed in terms of pulling this particular meeting together. Thank you for your patience. And then in terms of the Altos Bank in-person event in Los Altos, quite honestly, I think it'll probably be in early June for that. And I just need to kind of pin that down with the bank. And I hope to see all of you there. And hopefully it gets coordinated at the right time. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Doug. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.